The silence stretched between us for what felt like an eternity. I could almost hear the tension in the air as I watched them both closely, searching for the slightest flicker of surprise, of shock. "Surprised?" I asked, my voice cool and measured. Miriam's gaze darted from me to the opulent surroundings, clearly caught off guard. She had expected something smaller, perhaps a last-ditch attempt at success, something barely hanging on. But this was a world she hadn't seen coming. Sebastian cleared his throat, his movements deliberate as he straightened his suit jacket, an attempt to regain control. "I didn't realize you were involved in the high-end hotel business, Adrian," he remarked, his tone feigning casual interest, but the edge of discomfort was unmistakable. It was as if he couldn't quite reconcile the man he remembered with the one standing before him now. A smile tugged at the corner of my lips, but it wasn't one born from any joy or amusement. It was the kind of smile someone wears when they've clawed their way up from the depths, surviving every blow life had thrown at them. "Neither did most people," I replied, my words measured. "But I'm not one to stay down for long." Miriam's eyes narrowed, her lips barely concealing the tremor of surprise. She had walked away, convinced I would be nothing, just another casualty of circumstance. But here I stood, in a building that shouted success, that screamed of everything I had become, a success forged from relentless hard work, from pain, and from every bitter word she had ever spoken to me. Charlotte, ever poised and professional, broke the tension with her calm demeanor, turning to face the two of them with a polite smile. "Can I offer you anything? A drink, perhaps?" she suggested, her voice a model of hospitality. Miriam quickly regained her composure, though I could see the subtle shift in her posture, like a predator realizing it was no longer in control of the hunt. "No, thank you," she said curtly, but there was an unmistakable unease in her voice. This wasn't the world she knew, the world she'd once dismissed with such ease. She wasn't used to being out of her element. I allowed the silence to settle once more, letting the moment stretch longer than necessary. Then, I broke it, my tone steady and deliberate, laced with a quiet challenge. "Would you like that tour, Miriam? Or are you too busy with Sebastian's latest corporate conquests?" Her eyes darkened, but she quickly masked the reaction with a forced laugh, though the edge in her voice remained. "No need to be petty, Adrian," she replied, her words sharp, dripping with condescension. "I'm just surprised. I didn't expect this from you." I raised an eyebrow, my smile never wavering, but there was an unmistakable hint of satisfaction in it now. "Well, I'm full of surprises," I said, my voice low but carrying the weight of every decision that had led me here. I turned to Charlotte, who stood patiently at the ready. "Let's give them the tour." As Charlotte led them through the sleek, modern halls of the office, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing on me. Miriam had thought she could walk away from me, that she could trade me for a man with money, for the life she thought she deserved. But what she hadn't realized, what none of them had, was that I had something they could never take from me. I had earned the respect of those around me, and more importantly, I had earned my own respect. A man who had nothing was one thing. A man who had risen to power from the ashes of his past was something else entirely. Now, Miriam would have to confront the choices she had made, the same way I had confronted mine. I wasn't the man she had left behind. I had become someone far more formidable, someone with power, someone who could make the world remember. The tour continued, but my mind wandered back to the past, the woman who had once held my heart, the man who had stolen her from me. Neither of them understood what they were up against. Neither of them knew the force they were now dealing with. The moment stretched. Then, in a calm, controlled voice, I spoke. "Let me reintroduce myself. Adrian Kingston, CEO of Celestia International." Miriam inhaled sharply, and I could see Sebastian tighten his grip on her arm. She had always believed I was beneath her, forgotten and abandoned. But tonight, that illusion had just shattered. Sebastian forced an awkward laugh. "You're the CEO?" I smiled, looking directly at him. "Did Miriam not tell you?" She swallowed hard, her fingers curling into her expensive gown. I didn't know." I tilted my head slightly, enjoying the shift in energy. "Of course you didn't. You never looked back. Never bothered to check." I stepped aside, gesturing to the grand office beyond the glass doors. "Welcome to Celestia International, the empire I built from the ground up." Sebastian's gaze flickered over the opulent surroundings, his expression tightening. I could see the realization dawning on him. He had underestimated me, badly. I walked to my desk, the city skyline sprawling behind me. I leaned back in my chair and casually asked, "Would you like a drink?" My fingers tapped lightly on the polished wood, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Miriam didn't answer, but Sebastian tried to regain his composure. "Adrian, this is impressive." I chuckled softly. "More than just impressive. I have power, influence, and control over a world you thought was out of my reach." Miriam clenched her jaw, clearly unsettled. I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on her. "You thought you knew me, but tonight, Miriam, you'll finally see who I've become." I grinned, the satisfaction clear in my expression. And mine couldn't have been better. I hadn't just established a business. I had created a dominant position in the Celestia industry. Celestia International was now the benchmark for luxury, with every resort and spa reflecting my distinctive exclusivity. I catered to the elite, providing an experience that wasn't just about staying at a hotel. It was about purchasing identity, an identity that Celestia International now represented. Sebastian, whose aspirations had been for the kind of people Miriam had exchanged me for, now stood before me in shock. He had no idea what he was dealing with. When she realized the man she had left behind was, in fact, wealthy, she had no idea how to handle it. Charlotte stepped forward. "Mr. Kingston, shall I prepare you for your upcoming meeting?" I looked at Miriam and Sebastian before responding, "Why don't I give our visitors a little more background on my life?" Sebastian hesitated, his pride clearly wounded, but he forced a smile. "Sure, why not?" We walked down the executive floor, and I pointed to the nearby offices. "Each one of these is a department that oversees Celestia. Every choice made here is global, ranging from investor relations to real estate acquisitions, to marketing. This is how we formed a billion-dollar empire." As I continued, Sebastian's expression grew more intense. "You see, luxury isn't just about money. It's about how people perceive the cost of exclusivity and status. They don't just buy a hotel stay, they buy a part of themselves." And I made sure that Celestia International became the final word in luxury. Miriam let out a deep exhale, as if processing the extent of my progress. But I wasn't done yet. We arrived at a conference room where my top executives were in a meeting. The glass walls offered a perfect view of the ongoing conversation, and the slideshow displayed profits that made Miriam's eyes widen. Sebastian spoke of hundreds of millions of dollars in acquisitions and global expansion ambitions. I let the moment settle, letting them fully absorb the scale of what they were witnessing. Then I murmured, "This is what you left behind." Miriam's confidence was eroding as she turned to face me, her lips slightly parted in disbelief. Sebastian attempted another smile, but it was obvious he was anxious to change the subject. "I'll admit this is impressive," he said. I grinned, acknowledging that, yes, it was more than impressive. "It's also about power dynamics," I added. Miriam clutched her purse, her gaze avoiding mine. She had exchanged me for a future that had proved uncertain. Now, standing in front of the man she had misjudged, she realized the weight of her mistake. I glanced at my watch, deciding it was time to have Charlotte escort them out. "I have a meeting shortly, but before you leave, enjoy the evening. And the next time you consider me another low-level employee, remember whose name is on the building." I let a slow, intentional smile curve my lips. The air in the room was thick, almost oppressive, as Miriam and Sebastian were forced to reckon with the truth they hadn't anticipated. I wasn't the failure Miriam had left behind. I wasn't the insignificant man they had thought me to be. I was the CEO of Celestia International. Sebastian was clearly uncomfortable, attempting to hide the fact that the man he had underestimated had built an empire from the very rubble Miriam had left behind. "Adrian, I must confess, this is amazing," Sebastian admitted, though his discomfort was evident in his tight smile. I chuckled softly, savoring the moment. Miriam stayed silent, her gaze flickering about the room, as if searching for something to hold on to. But there was nothing left for her. No clever words to undo the reality she was facing. She had lost all power. I leaned back against my desk, watching them. Miriam's lips parted, but I interrupted her. "Want to see my workplace? Why don't I give you a proper tour?" She nodded quickly, But Sebastian shrugged. Why haven't I heard about this before? I glanced at Charlotte, who stood by, her calm demeanor betraying none of the gravity of the situation. My assistant, Charlotte. She ensures discretion. Charlotte handed me a sleek tablet. The anticipated income from our newest resort in Dubai has exceeded projections. We've also completed the Paris acquisition talks, and the final contracts are ready for your approval. I nodded, not missing a beat. Charlotte's words seemed to hit Miriam, as her steps faltered, hesitation creeping in. We continued down the executive hallway, where the walls were lined with glass, showcasing the high-level meetings taking place, discussions of expansions, branding tactics, and multi-million-dollar projects. Finally, we reached a conference room, where a digital display highlighted our most recent global acquisitions. I turned to Miriam and Sebastian. This is where we actually decide what to buy and sell. Every collaboration happens here. Sebastian scowled, obviously stunned by the scope of Celestia's operations. Celestia owns all of these properties? I grinned. Celestia operates in more than 20 countries, with fresh expansions in motion. This empire is only getting bigger.